Good morning, guys. It's Adi again. I am back on my soul commute to work, and this is my second video, and it's a little nerve-wracking, and I'm excited and nervous, as you can imagine. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you who took the time to watch my first video yesterday. And for those who haven't, you need to watch it. Please watch it. So yesterday I brushed upon the fact that it's the month of November, and we are in the month of diabetes awareness, which is actually every day for us, families with type 1 diabetes or those with type 1 diabetes. I talked about when my son was diagnosed, and as a recap, he was 11 months old when he was diagnosed. He was in DKA. He was misdiagnosed for over 3 weeks with flu-like symptoms and upper respiratory infection, until finally we were, after being in the hospital for about 6-7 hours, they determined that it was type 1 diabetes. And let that sit in. Yeah, I can't get over that. I'll never get over that, really. So what I wanted to talk about today in this video is post-diagnosis. Post-diagnosis is tough. You're in a state of shock, of course. I think that goes with any type of diagnosis on any type of person. But I, of course, just talking about my personal experience. And I was definitely in a state of shock. I was on brain overload. I was exhausted. Just to briefly mention, during the time that my son was diagnosed, my husband was in the hospital for the flu. He actually did have the flu. He was in one hospital, and our other child was in another hospital, in the children's hospital, with the adenovirus. And this was apparently the virus that triggered the type 1 diabetes in my son. So once we finally got that diagnosis, we were taken on a stretcher. I was taken on a stretcher with my boy limp in my arms, rushing to the ICU room so he can quickly be hooked up on a insulin drip, and basically bring him back to life. There's just no other word for that. It was devastating, it was shocking, and it was scary as hell. We were then moved into another special area. I want to say we were in NICU, and then we went to ICU. I can't remember exactly. And at this point, we really weren't getting educated per se on what exactly was going on, because I think the people that were actually dealing with him were trying to figure out what exactly was going on with him, which is just as scary. And of course, we leave it to the professionals. What we were actually dealing with at the moment were just simply bringing him back to life, understanding his sugar levels and how resistant he was to the type of insulin he was given. Shortly after, we were put into a general room where we actually had a great team. But the first night in a general normal room at the hospital, which is tough. It's tough when you have a child in the hospital and to see them in a crib. So what I ended up doing was I would sit in the visitor chair, the little lounge chair, recliner, and I would cradle my son and he would fall asleep with me. Because what I did notice is that when his sugar levels would drop, he would become sticky. His skin would become sticky, icky. So it must have been probably that first night, which was maybe like the third or fourth day that we were in the hospital. We were in a general room. He was cradled. I was kind of dozing off, and I instantly felt that sticky, icky feeling, and I actually felt my son's body just go limp. I remember getting up with him and running into the middle of the hallway with my son limp in my arms, screaming, and immediately they sounded off the code blue. We had a team of people coming in to figure out what was going on. Of course, one was checking his blood sugar levels. Another one was running to see what kind of carbs they were going to give him. And at this point, usually the call of action would maybe be the glucagon, and we'll get into glucagon a little later. But the one thing I can actually remember that amidst this chaos, my son, again, who was 11 months old, used to love for me to sing to him. Now, I am not a great singer, but my kids seem to think I am, and I'll take that. He used to love for me to sing Row, Row Your Boat to him. And the funny thing about this is that that's kind of a defense mechanism I have. You know, when you're worried or concerned or I don't know. I just have this connection with music. I love music. I was a classical ballet dancer for many years, and so there's just some kind of connection with music in any instance in my life. And in this instance, of course, I was scared shitless, and I started to sing. I started to sing, row, row, row your boat, holding on to my son. They couldn't get the orange juice into him. And I remember I was in this, like, I don't know if it was like an out of body experience, but yeah, there was this whole chaos going on. I remember grabbing the bottle of orange juice from one of the nurses, and I kept singing to my boy and talking to him at the same time, giving him about, I would say 24 ounces. We ended up giving him of orange juice because his blood sugar levels were at 27. 27. Remember, the regular, you know, the range, the normal range is 80 to 150. He was at 27. So just as a tip, if you're below the threshold or above the threshold, you're in danger. Either way. So yes, here I am amidst this chaos. We're on a code blue. My son's life is slipping away in my arms, and I am singing Row, Row Your Boat. That song has a whole new meaning to me now. And as I sang to him, I could see his lips sucking on the bottle and drinking. And from one moment to the next, I would say in the course of like maybe 10, 15 minutes, he got up and looked at me and started singing with me. Row, row, row your boat. And it kind of does bring tears to my eyes, and I'm going to try to hold back on them because, again, as an empath, I can envision that moment perfectly, like if I was sitting right there. I think that was the first time it actually hit me that this shit was serious. And that we were in it for the long run. That this was that this would probably be one of many nights with my boy like this. Thankfully, we've only had 2 other incidents like that in the years that he's been a type 1. Soon after that, the day after, I met with his wonderful doctor, and the training began. And I'll never forget what she told me. Of course, I'm exhausted. Remember, my husband and my other child were in the hospital. So I was back and forth going to hospital to hospital. When they finally get released, I ended up going back into the hospital with my son. So there was 0 sleep, let alone any shower, because I really don't even remember that. But let's not get into that. The doctor comes in. There was a rotation, of course, of nurses, wonderful nurses who were helping my son, who together we were trying to figure out what the heck was going on and how we were going to deal with this. And when she finally came in and told me, okay, Mom, it's time for you to learn how to inject your son, I looked at her and I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. She told me something that I will never, ever forget. And for all you out there who wonder, oh my God, how do you inject your son? Oh my God, you're type 1? How can you inject yourself? It's a typical question, believe it or not, that people do ask. A lot of people. How are you able to inject your son? Well, as my lovely doctor, endocrinologist, put it, oh, you will inject him. Because if you don't, he dies. Yeah. Okay. How do I do this? That's why people with type 1 diabetes absolutely must inject themselves, no matter where they're at. No matter where they're at. It's their lifeline. Insulin is a type 1's lifeline. We don't inject, they die. And that, my friends, is the harsh reality of type 1 diabetes. So I've seen many times throughout social media, throughout local newspapers, that people get offended when they're at a restaurant and see somebody inject themselves. How about showing a little bit of sympathy? And I know that's a little hard for many people to do in today's day and age, but show some sympathy. Think about it. How do you expect me to go inject my son in a bathroom where there's germs, there's piss and shit all over the place, and you expect me to get up from the table and inject my son? No, not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. So either you look away or mind your business. Because after all, if you're at a restaurant, you're supposed to be there with your family. You're supposed to be paying attention to your family, to the people who are in front of you, who you're sharing that time with, not the people around you. And I'm sorry if that offends you, but my son's life is far more important. So, I'm going to leave it with that for today. I wish you lots of love, lots of light, and above everything, tons of health. Thank you.